I am very blessed with this opportunity to interview my next guest. Just listen to his background, guys. Jevon Wooden is an author, professional speaker, and the founder of Live Not Loathe. We'll be asking how he came up with that amazing name. A mindset and business coaching, consulting, and speaking firm that helps entrepreneurs and business leaders increase brand awareness, sales, revenue, and customer relations. I love this part. He's obsessed with making success much easier for his clients. Today he'll be helping us understand like how can parents make it easier navigating this roller coaster journey of parenting to just obtain and maintain, right? With business, just like parenting, it's something that, right, we constantly have to work on. His mission is to take the struggle out of entrepreneurial hustle and help his clients create a life and business they don't need a vacation from. That's pretty magical. He combines his strategic and tactical expertise in marketing, sales, and business development to craft long term solutions to his clients' problems. He holds an MBA from the University of Maryland, Robert H. Smith School of Business, a master's in cybersecurity from Fordham University, and listen to this, a Bronze Star recipient for his heroic acts in Afghanistan while serving in the army. I mean, it's like you're Superman. Plus, working with
Well,
Les
thank you.
Brown, Dr. Cheryl Wood, and then you also make time. I think this is important too, right? Your hobbies, just enjoying traveling, nature, learning, live music, and performing community service. Wherever you have that that free time. But thank you so much for this opportunity. Give us some insights so parents can navigate raising their kids without losing their sanity or just I think questioning. I think we often question, am I ruining my child or what do we do?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me, Karen. On letting go with Aloha. It is an honor and pleasure to be here, and I love this. Let's talk parenting because you've made a great comparison between business and parenting. Right? We have a lot of things in business where there's some metrics you follow. There's all these different things that you hear, different marketing strategies. But guess what? There really is no manual because every single business is different. And it goes the same with parenting, right? You may have some idea of what you need to do, but when it comes to actually doing it, the implementation could be different, right? So you have to know your child, you have to know personalities, you have to know, different styles and all these things. So today, I just really want to talk about some tips that parents could use to really help elevate what's going on in their relationship with their children to design that life they don't need a vacation from while allowing their child the freedom to grow and to learn and to love, right? So, and that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to give space, right? And we have to give ourselves space. You and I were talking about before we even started this, we were talking about goal setting and prioritization, right? And goal setting and prioritization is very important in parenting because we have to understand that our agenda is not necessarily our child's agenda. So we have to work with our children to understand what are they looking for out of life? What do they want, especially as they hit the teenage years, right? Once they hit the teenage years, they start getting some idea of what they're looking for out of life. Maybe they have a talent, that you should cultivate. Maybe they have something they're interested in. So we have to remember as a parent that we can't just force what we want to be the case because that's how rebellion starts. That's how, friction between the relationship starts. So it's really a fine line. And I'm excited to get into that.
Yes, but so what do we do? Because I think parents, many of us think that we know, like, we have
Mhm.
life experience. We know, just trust me. And then we do what you just said. I think we do just stifle our children's dreams because we don't even ask, right?
Mhm.
Many times we just think, I know what you need. So how do we pause and reflect and, like you were saying, just allow them? I think it's hard to trust their journey. A lot of moms are like,
Right.
no, I need to prevent them from ruining their lives if they XYZ, whatever they decide.
Absolutely. One of the things I've learned, just like watching my nieces, my nephews, myself, and all my clients with children, what has worked is actually listening more than you talk.
Mm.
And when I say that, I'm talking about actively listening, not to respond, but to understand what's going on. And when you can do that, when you develop that type of relationship with your child where they can trust that they can speak to you and you're not going to just vent at them and tell them, no, this is not right. When you really understand where is this coming from, I look at it as being like a coach, right? So you ask powerful questions to get them thinking about what they're saying are their options, right? If they say, hey, I want to be a truck driver, but you want them to be a doctor, maybe you ask why. What are they
Mm-hmm.
looking to get out of being a truck driver? What about that role do they align with? What do they really want their life to look like? When you start asking those questions, it allows them to come up with the ideas. It allows them to come up with those answers, because then maybe they say, maybe I don't have to be a truck driver to do that. Maybe I could do this, right? So you want to really not just push your agenda, like I was saying, but you want to open up their minds,
Mm-hmm.
and be that person that they could come to confide in and consult with, not just the person that's going to say you need to do this and that's the final say, because your way may not work. Let's just be honest. Like, well,
Exactly.
you got that from years ago, right? Maybe when you was a child, you're like when I was a kid, we did it. Well, things don't work that way anymore, right? So we have to understand that we're learning just as they're learning, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's just how it's going to be, and that's the beauty, really, because when you're having these conversations, you're like, I never really thought about it from that perspective. Tell me more, and then your curiosity is allowing them to expand, and also allow them to keep their curiosity, because that's one of the beauties about being a kid, is being curious, right? And once you take that away from them, because you're telling them, no, don't do this and don't do that, right? If you take that away from them, it kind of, we see it all the time, right? As a coach, as a therapist, all that, you see people shrink, right?
Yes.
Because their loved ones, their authority figures, as they were coming up, was telling them, no, you shouldn't do this. No, you won't amount to anything. No, you can't do that. That's impossible. Things like that. So we have to make sure we keep that in mind, as we're telling them things, not projecting our fears or insecurities on them.
Yeah, that is true, projecting our fears. So the next question is, how do we become aware of our limiting beliefs and not pass it on? Because I think a lot of these kids, I had someone say, yeah, I don't read because my dad doesn't read. And then another
Mm-hmm.
teacher said, oh, the 9-year-old didn't have anything written. Oh, yeah, I don't write because both of my parents don't write. And the parents were immigrants who didn't write, but he believed, it's almost like they believed that they inherited, anything from their parents that, I don't know if it's an excuse or maybe it's truly lacking belief, right?
Right. And yeah, I don't see that. Like, we learn our belief system really comes from our environment, from our people that we're around, from our parents, from our loved ones, authority figures, situations. So that belief system is ingrained in you, it's instilled in
Mm-hmm.
you, and you don't really know anything outside of that, right? That's your box,
Yep.
because, and that's how far your thought process can go, because you were told that that was the limit. Right. So then that's why we have to be careful. And as parents or any type of authority figure, we have to be mindful that we do that introspection, do that work. Is this voice my voice? Or maybe I even have someone that told me I couldn't do something, and that's why I'm telling it to my kid, right? So we have to do that work ourselves, where we could say, all right, I'm listening to my thoughts, I'm becoming aware or mindful of what's being said in my mind. So I think before I speak. So I'd say,
Mm.
should I say that? Should I say that to them? Or maybe I should ask a question versus giving a statement, a factual thing, that sounds permanent. Because that's where a lot of people get stuck in. They feel like whatever the situation or circumstance is permanent. There's no temporary here. When a lot of the things and thoughts that we have, our belief systems, our value alignment, all those things can be changed. And we have to understand that change is a part of life. It's going to happen. And when we make things permanent that don't really need to be, we become lost. So you have to do that work, that introspection, that really getting to know you. I at least want to do that, once every quarter, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
really want to acknowledge, like, how have you grown? What can you work on? What are some ideologies maybe that you need to challenge a little bit to see if they actually jive with who you want to be and the life you want to live. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's not easy, but it's
Mm-hmm.
necessary.
Well, I love how you said your belief about depression and how I think a lot of us will probably heal faster from depression. Because what did you define depression as, and why do you think so many people allow depression to paralyze them?
Yeah, and that's a great question. We were talking about that before we started, and what I was saying was depression. A lot of people say they're depressed when they're really just having a bad day. So we have to understand that, having a bad day and not feeling, your best is normal. It's when there's a baseline, when you're below your baseline for a certain amount of time, or maybe it just hits you out of nowhere, right? There's certain things you look for when you talk about depression. I myself struggle with it. And some of the things I look at is, was there anything that caused the feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or am I just down? Should I be happy? And I'm the exact opposite. So there's certain things you want to look at. When you have no joy of doing anything that you typically love to do, you want to look at those types of things. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with depression for a number of reasons. One reason is that we get stuck too much in the past. We're like, I wish I could have changed that. I
Mm-hmm.
wish this happened. This person did this to me, and that just defined me. Well, it only defines you if you let it define you. It's really about how your perspective and perception is. Like, so if I perceive a negative to be a growth point in my life,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a growth point in my life. If I perceive that it has really killed me back then, even though I'm still living, then that's what it's going to be. That will be the death of you, even though you're still living, right? So you're not alive, you're just living, going through the motions. So that's what we have to really consider when we talk about depression. What is it that we're holding on to that has hold of us, that we just cannot let go? Have we done that work? And if we've done that work, then what could we do? Maybe it's the foods we're eating. Maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
the sleep patterns. There's a lot of things that come into play in that. Like what we eat is huge in that. Like I had to change my diet. How we're sleeping, are we getting enough sleep plays a huge factor because it's a mood. It really controls your mood. If you sleep well, you're typically in a better mood. Are you things in life like hobbies and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
things that really reduce stress? So you just really have to make sure your life aligns with that to reduce your susceptibility to having a depressive episode. And there are a lot of things you can do with that. And talking, having some professional help like a therapist really helps when you can get those things off your chest, because a lot of us, we're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't have nothing to worry about. And then what it was, when we go to speak about it, we just stuffed it down and we
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to remember, but it's still there. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It talks about that, how people have traumatic things happen to them and they don't remember it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still impacting them. They don't know why when a certain type of person comes near them, they feel a little scared or nervous. They don't know why when someone's voice sounds a certain way, they just get triggered and they're like, yeah, I can't be around this person. That's why, because there are some things that we just may have stuffed down and it's still in our subconscious mind and it's holding on into our bodies. So we just really have to be mindful of that.
That is powerful because a lot of parents, if they realize that, and it's their inner voice that they are projecting onto their children, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I am curious, Javon, how did you get that title? That was very, just, I thought, wow, live, not loathe. I thought, you know what? I think a lot of us do loathe ourselves, part of us, because we feel, I think, sometimes trapped by insecurity, by, like you said, the past, or maybe even lack of confidence. I mean, how did you get that? That's an amazing name.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Karen. So, there's a few things that I wanted to really show and define and display in the name. So, represents the transformation that my clients go through, right? So, loathing, we mentioned that we just hate life. We hate what's going on, our circumstances. We hate that we don't have the job we want. Our family is not, poor, whatever it is. We just do not like it, right? And we're loathing it. We dislike it. We hate it. We just can't deal with it anymore. It's weighing us down. We're like, why do I have to keep going through this? You just
Mm-hmm.
asking those questions, why? And then there's the opposite of that, which is what I want to get everyone through too, is living. Understanding we have agencies. We focus agency over our life. We focus on what we can control, not what we can't. Input versus output, right? Instead of focusing on the things we can't control, which is the outcome of what we're looking to go for, we focus on the effort. what can we do to work towards that? Because a lot of times what we're working towards is too small for us anyway. God had another plan that's grander. So we just have to understand that we don't need to be married to the outcome so much. Embrace the journey. Understand that if you work to be 1% better each day, you are exponentially better by the time the year is over. And you have to acknowledge that. You have to look back. That's the only time I want you to look back, is to say, damn, I did that.
Right,
I am
right.
killing it right now, right? And just to see the growth and to understand that failure is a part of that journey, right? When you're going from loathing to living, you're going to trip up and fall, but it's because you're challenging yourself to be better. It is because you're growing. You're going into
Hmm.
unfamiliar territory, right? Even the best and the brightest fail from time to time at what they're great at. That's okay. They don't hang their heads and retire because they just failed. They go at it again and apply that lesson, right? And that's what we have to take out of that. You know, any athlete, any great person that we see, we only see the finished product, right? But what's happening on the back end, which parents can really relate to, is all the work that goes in. So when you see your child walk that stage, you're like, man, I remember all those late nights of doing math I haven't done in 10 years. You know, I remember all those times. So that's what we have to look at, you know, just like, man, that's the beauty of life, though, that journey. If we really slow down to understand how blessed we are, even if things seem dire, like, you have another chance every day. So if you can see, like, I don't like what I have, but I don't have to, this isn't permanent. I don't have to keep this. I can do something about it. That's what really is the most important point about that. You mentioned believing. You know,
Hmm.
it's hard to believe if you don't see something, but that's what we call faith.
Yes.
So you have to have faith, yes, in a higher power, but also faith in yourself that you can change whatever is going on. Whatever you don't like, instead of complaining, change it, right? Work towards it. That energy that you're putting in, you know, really just saying things about it, saying what you wish could happen, go ahead and
Hmm.
will it to happen. So just keep putting in that effort, keep putting in that time so you can live, not loathe.
I love that. Yes, and I think from a parenting perspective, though, when you are in it, and your child is failing or cutting school or just not wanting to even look at homework, right? They don't want to study.
Mm-hmm.
And then you really believe it is not temporary, or if it is temporary, when's it going to happen? Are they going to graduate? Will they do this in the future, right? Will they
Right.
not really focus on their job or even finding a job? And so I think that's where, I mean, how do you get that faith? Because like it is faith, believing that it will happen. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when it's repetitive, year after year, how do you even find that faith? I know one of my friends, her niece failed freshman year, repeated, sophomore year, repeated, junior year. So come senior year, you already know, you think, oh, she will fail and become a failure. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
very, it's not a temporary thought because you really believe they will become a failure. How do you even handle that?
So there's a lot to that, right? Because what it is, like, how many times do we do a root cause analysis, though? How many
Mm,
times do we really find out why that person's failing or why they don't do well in the subject? Because there's so many variables there, right? It could be a learning disability. Are they interested, right? We can't do the work for them. We have to understand that,
yes.
right? That's letting go of the outcome, letting go of things we can't control, right? You're the parent. You cannot do the work for them. But if you instill in them why it is important for them to complete it, see why they're failing. Like, do they have a learning disability? What kind of type of testing you can do to see what's going on with them? Having those conversations with them. There's a lot that can be done. But at the end of the day, as a parent, you want your child to do well, but we have to understand that we cannot live their lives for them, right? We can only do a certain part. It's just the same thing with a coach, with a team, right? They can be
Yes.
the best coach ever, but if the team does not execute, there's nothing the coach can do. The coach can't get on the court and play for them, right? So we have to see that as parents too. It's like, I can only do a certain amount of this for you. If
Mm-hmm.
you really want a great life, if you do not want to struggle the way I struggled when I was coming up, if you say you want to live in this nice house, if you say you want money to do the things you want to do, then why aren't you showing that, right? Why aren't you showing that and put that in perspective for them? Because sometimes they need that wake up call. we've all been there. When I was young, I thought I'd be young forever and things was just gonna work for me, right? So
Right,
you're like, yeah,
right.
whatever. I don't need. I just chill right now, right? I'll work hard
Yeah,
later.
that
But
that's my yeah, a lot of my students at 12, I wish that we didn't have school past seventh grade. Or really is the lack of interest. Because they think,
exactly,
why do I have to memorize these formulas? Why do I? And I always, it's almost like comparing it to, you go to the gym for physical health, and it's like, that's what academics is. I don't make the curriculum. Sometimes I don't
right,
agree with the curriculum, but if you want
exactly.
that diploma, right? Or if you want that. But see, you know what the hardest thing is? And that's why, like, letting go with Aloha, I struggled. I think even today, it's like, how do you let go without losing your sanity? I wrote it, and now
Hmm.
that's the death of me. It's like, well, didn't you write the book? Are you not letting go?
I love it.
And it's like, I'm practicing. I wrote it, but it doesn't mean I mastered it.
Yeah,
Any final
absolutely.
thoughts on, yeah, because letting go, it seems, you know what, it's not me. And I'm coaching parents and kids, and then all of a sudden it's me. And I think, wait a minute. It's so easy to tell parents, to tell kids, and then when it's you, you think, oh, this is why it's hard.
Absolutely. Well, when it's you, right? I use this analogy, I'm always talking about, something like they talk about the 30,000 foot view, right? When you're in the fight, you're too close to see the counter cross or that left hook coming, right? So it's
Mm,
like, that's why you need someone from that external perspective. That's where you come in, right? As a coach, or myself, right? We come in, we can see those things because we're not in it. When you're in it, you care so much about it. But that's why you need like that unbiased perspective to say, you know what, you're doing too much. You got to chill. Or have you tried
yes.
this? Right. So it's easier for you from an external perspective. When you're in it, you're frustrated. You're really trying to solve the problem. So you can't see that there's other options. So that's why. And you also have to understand that there's no such thing as perfection. Right. You can be the greatest parent in the world, but your child may not become out to be what you expected them to be, right? So we have to understand that, like, we do our best, do our part, but you got to let it go sometimes, right? You got to say, you know what? I gave all that I had. I did my best with the information I had at that time, right? What else can I do? Well, if you come up with nothing, sometimes that's it. You could try to bring on some expert help. You could try all these different things, but at the basis of the thing, or the point, is that child still has to do their part. We're talking about a whole
Right.
nother human being here, right? It's not as
Right.
simple as, just rewind and restart, because you can't. It's like that person has to want for themselves as much as you want for them, actually, even more. And if
Mm-hmm,
they
mm-hmm.
don't, it will reflect in that. And you, in order to save yourself from going down and really getting into the depression and all those other feelings, sometimes you have to say, you know what, I did my part. I did what I can do. As a parent, that is one of the hardest things you can do.
Yes.
That is one of the hardest things, but we see it all the time, right? Children who have great parents, they had a loving home, but then they go out and they just do the exact opposite of what you thought they would
Yes.
do,
And then you know what
right?
happens? The parents blame themselves. And this is where, how can we
Exactly.
get parents to understand that it is not their responsibility? They'll take credit for success, but when it becomes, their failure, it's like, what did I do to
Mm-hmm.
create this failure, right? How does that mindset shift even work?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to ensure that you're not pushing your agenda on your child,
That's
right?
a good
And
one.
so then that's where it comes from, because you want them to be so great. You're like, man, I see the potential. I see this. And then when
Yes.
they don't do that, they fall short. You're like, what did I do wrong? Well, you got to understand, it's not, you can't personalize that, because it's another
Mm-hmm.
person. Again, there's another person on that side that has to do what they have to do, right? As a parent, it's going to hurt,
Yeah.
right? It will hurt you and you're going to want to do, but at a certain point, we have to understand that if we keep trying to help, we end up enabling the very behavior we don't want them to have, right? And so you have to look at it that way. Like, I'm just being a crutch at this point, right?
Yes.
I'm allowing them to do this bull and be this person that I do not want them to be by being there for them, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to have that tough love. Like, you know what? I'm not. Hey, when you get your stuff together, hit me up. But until
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
like, you gotta do what you have to do, right? And it's the tough thing to do, but that's really, really effective if you look at like
It is
governments.
effective. I learned
It
that. I
is.
thought, okay, I'm going to let go. And I thought, oh my gosh, all of us were just like waiting, and then
Yeah.
during graduation, it was so funny because we were thinking, is she going to graduate? And then they call her name. This was class of 2020, so drive by, the first drive by graduation.
Mm.
And then she had a certificate for honors, and it was so funny. We're filming it, and her sister says, "What? Wait a minute. What?" And we thought, you know, why are you saying that? But it was kind of funny. But I thought, you know what? It was when I let go, she might have fumbled a little, but it has to be, and this is the hardest thing, they need to want it more than you. And even my
Right.
friend said she had to take years to master that because you feel I can motivate them. If I'm a good parent, I will be able to inspire them. So even from a coach's perspective, do you have, I'm sure there's been a few where you inspire and motivate, and then if your client isn't ready or right, something's just not there.
Yeah. Well, for me, that is a non-starter for me. If you are not inspired yourself to go for it, there's no amount of work that I can do with you that will help you, right? And I'm not even going to take your money, right?
Yes.
So for me, I look at it as this. I let people know that your why. My favorite quote that I say is, "Your reasons to has to be stronger than your excuses to be mediocre." Right?
Ooh.
So if you do not have a why, one of the exercises I love to do is the 5 whys. When you keep digging deeper, keep asking yourself
Yes.
why, to find that root. It usually takes 3, but if you go to 5, you're going to really be clear on why it even matters. Why is it important to you? I mean, you can do that with your child. Ask
I
them
was going to
why.
say that. I think we do it as adults, but
Mhm.
we don't really ask questions, do we? Well, unless it's like, did you do your homework? But it's never
Right.
self-reflective. And that can be life-changing because then the
Absolutely.
children will have enlightenment when you think about it. They're so used to just being told,
Yeah, and
right?
that's what I'm saying. We have to understand that children, first of all, the synapses in their brain connect a lot faster now. They are very intelligent, right? At young ages, they are getting information that we got maybe 10 years before we're getting it, right? So
Hmm,
we
hmm.
have to understand that, and we have to start giving them the agency in their life to say, do you understand? Ask them those questions where they can get that clarity, get that understanding, and allow, like, hey, okay, yeah, it is really my decisions. Like, I have to make sure I'm making good decisions, because that impacts everything I want in my life, right? When we get them to really understand that this is not a game, this
Yes.
is actually, this is, you can't restart, right? This is not a video game. So this is something that you have to take seriously, at all points, because one mistake can be the final mistake, right? So we have to make sure we them understand that, yes, you can be free and be curious and be, all these great things and be young and free, but you also have to make sure you're being intentional, right? Make sure you're being intentional, make sure you're being safe, make sure you understand, make sure you're doing things that really align with who you are and your values. Don't let anyone pressure you into doing things that you shouldn't be doing. If
Hmm.
your gut tells you that is not what you should be going to do, right, and it just sounds crazy to you, maybe you shouldn't be doing it, right? Maybe you should get someone else's perspective, or just use your own discernment. So things like that are really important in parenting. And a lot of, you said, a lot of us, we want to just tell them. And I'm saying, don't just tell, like, ask, be
Right.
inquisitive, be thoughtful. Why does it matter? Why do they want to do it? Who are they around? Look at their social circles. That's another thing. Social media
Hmm.
is huge, because children are so impressionable. So we have to look at what they're looking at. Make sure their social media feed is not just negative stuff, negativity, or people who are living grand lives showing them that this is what success is. Make sure they have some people who are motivating, they're realistic, right? They're giving information, educational, all those things, because that's going to be important in their growth.
Definitely. I love this. So any closing words to just show parents and just give hope. We all need
Yes,
hope. I think sometimes, especially during the pandemic, a lot of us lost hope, lost direction, and many of us, it was just the unpredictability, right? How do we
absolutely.
navigate that?
Yeah. Well, I would say this. I would say for parents, like, you are wonderful first and foremost. Like you are literally raising the future leaders of the world. So you should be proud of yourself. And I know it's hard, but understand that if you do your best, that is all you can ask of yourself, right? And I know a lot of parents give past that, but you also have to make sure you're taking care of yourself too, because you can't be there for someone else if you're not there for yourself. So I know you have children, I know you have family, I know you have life responsibilities, but make sure you take care of you. Don't forget about you, right? So you make sure you're taking time for yourself, taking breathers, taking breaks as much as you can, because you want to be able to pour into those you care about and the things you care about fully and wholeheartedly, not from an empty cup. So that's what I would leave with you. Just make sure you're looking at yourself and saying, how do I feel? How do I feel? Because the number one thing I see is parents getting stressed out, having so many ailments and issues because they're not taking that time to take those breaks, to tell people, hey, I'm setting these boundaries. This
Yes.
is my time, right? So you just have to have those things. And when you put those in place, you'll be surprised how well and how fluid your parenting becomes because you're taking care of yourself.
So true. I think self-care is so underestimated. And I think, when we get caught up in the shoulds and our plate is so full, then we add more to it.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed I was
Mm-hmm.
doing like my daily yoga. It was like 30 days, then I did it, then I did it, and then I stopped completely.
Right.
And then you
Right.
wonder, why am I more frazzled? And all it sometimes takes is like 10 to 15 minutes of your day, and if you can't, just even 5 minutes, right? Because
Right.
they're just dropping some kid at soccer, and then they're doing this, and then they're going to work, then they're thinking of dinner, and then you
It's a
just
lot.
listen to like, oh my gosh, just hearing some of their routines stress me out.
Absolutely. And then sometimes you also have to look at the routines. Like, what can you, like, as your kid gets to a certain point, what can you have them start doing themselves? Right.
Oh,
Because I know
that's
a
a
lot of
good
us,
one. Oh my
right, we
gosh, I
have to
have,
look at that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I have parents who, they charge their kids' phone, or like, oh my gosh, I have to take the water bottle to school because they forgot
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, then don't bring it. Oh, but they'll be thirsty. Guess what? If you don't bring
That's their
it, they will
responsibility.
remember it because they'll remember being thirsty, right? Or dropping off homework. I was a
Right.
big thing about that. I'm like, I am not, and my friends like, but don't you empathize? And I said, but how do we teach them to be accountable,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely. And that's the big thing. It's like accountability. And that's what we have to build into our parenting. Is that, like, I'm not going to do everything for you. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
as you get older, we're going to get little and more responsibility, and that's life, right? So if you teach them at a younger age, they're going to understand life is real, because they're like, hey, my mom, my dad, they had me doing these things. Like, it wasn't just chores. I had to make sure I had my bag packed, make sure everything
Yes.
was in it the night before, make sure my water was good, get them in a routine where instead of sitting down watching TV all the rest of the night, they're preparing for the next day. Right? Put them in the habits of success, and then that way it's easier for everybody.
It does. And when it's easier on the parents, then, I mean, everything flows, right?
Everything flows.
Well, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. I know it's a Saturday. You took time out. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, Destin was saying, yeah, we need to go to Texas and do
Yes.
something with you. And it's just, I'm just amazed at how fast and how much you've accomplished in such a short amount of time.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's such a pleasure having these conversations, and I can't wait for y'all to come to Texas, put on an event together, and let's make it happen.
Definitely. Okay, take care. Enjoy the rest of your
Take
day.
take care. You
Okay,
too, Karen.
bye.
Bye.